Lucas Whitmore, open the door. You son of a... The pounding came first, then the flashes, a hotel staffer, 3 uniformed security guards, and, standing proudly at the front, Melina, my wife, flanked by 2 reporters and her attorney. She stormed in, heels slicing across marble, holding up her phone like it was a crucifix. Behind her, a woman in lingerie, tangled in the hotel sheets. Cameras snapped. The woman screamed. The reporter shouted, "How long have you been cheating on your wife, Mr. Whitmore?" I didn't say a word. I sat on the edge of the bed, fully clothed, calm, because I knew something no one else did. There were no emails, no texts, no trail, no actual infidelity. But here she was, walking in like judge, jury, and public executioner, while a woman I'd never seen before played her part perfectly. Melina spun toward me. "I gave you everything," she said, tears welling on cue, "and you gave yourself to a stranger in a hotel room." "We're done, Lucas." Then she turned to the reporter. "I want the world to know what kind of man he really is." I looked past them, up to the corner of the ceiling, to the tiny, nearly invisible lens that only I knew about, the private, encrypted camera I had installed months ago, for this exact moment, because I'd started to suspect something was coming, just not like this. They dragged me from the room. Hotel security escorted me out like I was a threat. Reporters screamed, "Cheating tech CEO." Viridian co-founder caught in scandal. Melina Whitmore breaks silence. My phone blew up with messages. Board members, investors. One even said, "You're finished." But I wasn't, because I'd already backed up the full footage, and I had the real plan sitting 5 chess moves ahead. Let them burn the bridge. I wasn't walking across it anymore anyway. They thought I'd go down for cheating, but when the smoke cleared, they were going to realize who was really playing who. And the elevator doors opened to silence. My nameplate was gone. The glass wall where my title once shone, Chief Strategy Officer, had already been wiped clean. No message, no meeting, just erasure. But that was part of the plan. I stepped into my office anyway, or what used to be mine. My keycard still worked, barely. Inside, empty desk, framed photo of Melina and me, gone. The only thing left was a manila envelope, my name handwritten in cold blue ink. I opened it. Notice of indefinite administrative leave, revocation of board voting privileges, clause citing immoral conduct in violation of executive contract. They moved fast, almost too fast. I checked my inbox, deactivated, work laptop, locked, shared drives, access denied. But I had offline backups. Everything that mattered, I kept on a drive no one knew existed, behind a false compartment in the wall of my old apartment, because I'd built this company from a folding table and an unpaid internship. I knew what people could take when they got scared, and what they couldn't see until it was too late. By noon, I was trending on Twitter. Lucas Whitmore, Viridian scandal, sex scandal CEO I watched from a burner phone. Melina had released a statement. Measured, strategic, a perfect cocktail of victimhood and professionalism. This has been a deeply painful revelation. I trusted Lucas in business and in love, but betrayal has consequences. I won't be silenced. I read it 3 times. She wanted this, the public, the story, the humiliation, and the actress in the hotel room. I checked the metadata on the leaked photo she'd leaked. The image was taken 2 days before, not the night of the supposed catch. They'd staged it. Every beat, every scream, every frame. This wasn't a breakup, it was a hostile removal. I called Ronan, my private investigator, former NSA. Expensive as hell, worth every cent. We're in a full op, I said. Trace every dollar, every login, every device she's used in the last 60 days. And Ronan, yeah? Start with my CTO. Because if Melina wanted to destroy me that badly, there was no way she was working alone. And now that I'd been cast as the villain, Ronan's voice came through my AirPods like a slow knife. You're gonna want to sit for this. I already was. Melina's lawyer, Jonathan Hale, represented someone else 6 months ago. A guy named Trevor Marks. I froze. Trevor Marks was my CTO. The same Trevor I hired 4 years ago. The same Trevor who conveniently went dark the day after the scandal broke. They were in mediation over an NDA lawsuit with another startup, Ronan continued. Guess who paid Hale's retainer? Melina. I didn't say anything, just let the bile rise slowly. I called my former executive assistant, Natalie. She'd been loyal since day one. Did Trevor ever ask about your access to my files? She paused. Yeah, once, around the third quarter last year. Said he needed internal financials for a board scenario analysis. Weird thing was, I never saw that analysis come through. There it was. That night, I broke into my own cloud backup. The encrypted vault I kept off-server. Two-factor authentication locked behind a biometric device only I controlled. Inside, documents I never created. Digital transfer of Viridian's proprietary patents, an unsigned licensing agreement with a Shell LLC, meeting minutes from a board session that never happened, all signed Lucas Whitmore. The timestamps were forged, but the document headers were perfect because they weren't fabricated. They were copied from my real files. Someone had used my templates, my writing style, my formatting, and that meant they had access to my local terminal, which meant only one person, Melina. Back then, she'd come by the office often, said she loved being part of my world, wore a pass like the rest of the staff. She didn't want my world. She wanted to build her own out of its pieces. And Trevor? He wasn't just helping her steal. He was helping her recreate me, from code base to cap table. But the worst part? They weren't planning to kill me, just replace me. The next morning, I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle. Under a different name, I had work to do, quietly. Because if they were going to launch something with my soul inside it, I'd make sure their first customer was also their last enemy. The hidden safe was still behind the painting. Inside, 2 USB drives, a burner phone, and a black notebook with red tape across the spine. My offline ledger. I opened the drive labeled Shadow/Q4Dev and plugged it into an air-gapped laptop. What I saw didn't shock me, it enraged me. A full duplicate of my proprietary AI compression algorithm, the same one that took me 3 years to optimize, now slightly rewritten, renamed VaraCore, and labeled Developed by vCore Labs. vCore Labs, Viridian Core, Melina's new venture, Trevor's new domain, my stolen skeleton. But that wasn't the worst part. I opened the folder marked Transfer Agreements, and there it was. Doc, Exclusive IP Transfer Agreement, from Whitmore Strategic Holdings to vCore Labs, signed Lucas Whitmore, witnessed Melina Whitmore, forged signature, false date. And the witness line, that was the real giveaway. Melina had literally written her own name twice, once as spouse, once as witness. Sloppy, overconfident, exactly how I needed her. Then I opened the surveillance video. 2 months ago, 2:14 a.m. office camera, one I never told anyone about. The night I was at a tech summit in Lisbon. Melina enters, wearing gloves, no heels, hair up. She bypasses my passcode with a fingerprint mold. My right thumb, most likely lifted from a glass. She accesses the terminal, inserts a drive, copies folders, alters timestamps. Before leaving, she takes a framed photo off my desk. Our wedding photo. She doesn't smash it. She just looks at it, long. Then she puts it in her bag. She wasn't trying to ruin me, I said aloud to the empty room. She was trying to erase me. Not out of spite, out of ambition. She thought she could wear my skin and call it reinvention. She thought she could fake my fall, then walk through the ashes in a crown. She thought she could kill the man and keep the legacy. Fine, let her try. But I had my footage. I had my ledger. I had everything I needed. All that was left was patience. The thing about a man's reputation, once it's broken, people stop looking at you, which makes it the perfect time to disappear. I checked myself into a private rehab facility in Langley Falls under the name Thomas Vance. Fake records, fake diagnosis, real silence. Melina's lawyers couldn't subpoena a ghost, and the media, they moved on to their next target by day 5. Perfect. From my small room overlooking the lake, I set up shop. Encrypted laptop, offline database, cellular VPN routed through Denmark. I was no longer Lucas Whitmore, disgraced tech exec. I was Ghost Protocol. And the first thing I did, log into the Viridian dev environment. Under an admin account they hadn't deactivated. Rookie mistake. Inside, I watched every commit they pushed, every update, every product announcement. They weren't just using my code. They were pacing their release schedule based on my old roadmaps. Worse, they were about to launch Vara Core Beta, a proprietary data slimming engine invented by Trevor. I watched a clip from their internal demo day. Melina, in a clean white blazer, standing in front of my stolen architecture diagram. We believe Vara will reshape how the world stores and transmits encrypted intelligence. She smiled, confident, beautiful, lethal. But what she didn't know was this. I'd embedded a breadcrumb, a line of dormant code in the early Vara model, a pingback trigger that activated if the core was ever cloned improperly. Think of it like a virus, but ethical. The moment Vara Core ran in a live external environment, it would send a silent packet to my private node. I would know exactly who used it, when, and how often. The moment they went live, I would own the evidence. Until then, I stayed quiet. Let them rise, let them gloat, let them believe they'd buried me. Because I wasn't building a comeback. I was building a reckoning. They launched on a Thursday. Viridian Core's public unveiling. Streamed live. Tech blogs on fire. Twitter trending. TechCrunch called it the future of lightweight AI infrastructure. Trevor stood smug beside Melina at the press conference. Melina wore the same white blazer, same poised smile. My branding, my demo format, my code. This is about redefining how companies scale secure data systems, she said to the crowd. We're not just launching a company, we're launching a standard. And the crowd applauded. But while the cameras flashed, a small, silent ping hit a node in a private network located in Switzerland. Then another, then 6 more. Veracore was live, which meant so was my proof. Back in the Brooklyn loft, I was now calling HQ. I poured coffee into a chipped mug and opened the dev log. There it was, device ID, VRC-001-CTO. Location, Viridian Core, HQ-San Francisco IP signature. Match, Vara_beta_014/SHA. L Whitmore _hashkey user. T.marks, trigger, activated, true. The Git hash still bore my embedded signature, a fingerprint nobody ever noticed because it looked like a version note. I ran a local diff tool. 89.3% of the current Vara codebase was a modified branch of my original proprietary model, with enough identical code fragments to prove intellectual property theft in federal court. But I wasn't ready to drop the hammer yet. Not yet. First, I filed 2 quiet patents, not under my name, under LW Systems Holdings LLC Shell Company, Delaware registered, no press. Then, using a clean lawyer team out of Chicago, I filed an anonymous cease and desist, not to stop Viridian, but to bait them. I needed Melina and Trevor to react, to panic, to email each other, to say the quiet parts out loud. So I seeded the claim through a leak to a small cybersecurity blog, one with enough reach to spark noise, but not enough to cause real headlines. And right on cue, the next day, Melina sent Trevor a flagged internal Slack message. Who the hell is LW Systems Holdings? Are we exposed? Tell Hale to prep the pushback. I'm not going down for a ghost. I archived everything, screenshotted, time-stamped, because soon they wouldn't just be thieves, they'd be liars trying to cover it up in public view. And I would be the one holding the script. You're sure you want to short them now? The trader asked. I nodded. All in, Viridian Core, max leverage, no stop loss. He glanced at the monitors. Viridian's stock price was climbing at 14% per day since launch. You do realize you could lose everything if this doesn't break your way. It will. He smirked, shook his head, and keyed in the order. I walked out $1.2 million deep into the most aggressive short of my life. At the same time, I was onboarding former Viridian engineers, quietly. 2 had quit over ethical concerns around code licensing. I found them, hired them under Miranode, my stealth startup. They had no idea I was Lucas Whitmore, just thought I was a private investor funding anti-bloat AI optimization tools. In less than 3 weeks, we rebuilt Vara's architecture from scratch, but legally clean. I called it MNX. It ran faster, cheaper, smarter, and more importantly, it was mine. Then I reached out to Viridian's top investor, Sinclair Equity. Under an alias, I booked a meeting. Their managing partner, Erica Sloan, walked into the room holding a Viridian pitch deck, the same deck I wrote 2 years ago before they stole it. Let me guess, she said. You are the guy behind the LW Holdings patent. I didn't answer. I just slid a single flash drive across the table. On it, the Slack messages, the forged IP transfer forms, and the secret footage of Melina copying code after hours. Erica plugged it in, watched 2 minutes, and whispered, "Holy shit." That's federal wire fraud, she said. That's IP theft. That's securities liability. And? I asked. She looked at me for a long moment. You want to destroy them? No, I replied. I want to replace them. Later that night, Sinclair Equity began liquidating their Viridian holdings, quietly, one block at a time. I monitored the volume. I watched the stock begin to twitch. Just enough for whispers. Just enough for panic to whisper back. Because Melina and Trevor had climbed so fast. They never thought to look below them, at the man cutting the ropes. Viridian Core went public with fireworks, literal ones. Melina rang the bell in a pearl suit. Trevor stood beside her, sunglasses on, smug as ever. CNBC called it a new Silicon Valley success story, born from disruption and heartbreak. They had no idea how right they were. But while Melina threw her celebration on the balcony of the NYSE, drinking champagne and throwing fake confetti at cameras, I was sitting in a glass-walled co-working space 4 blocks away, watching 2 screens. Left, Viridian stock price. Right, the Reddit thread I'd just seeded through a ghost account with 100K karma, r/tech leaks. Title, New AI Unicorn Might Be Running Stolen Code. Here's the proof inside. Screenshots, Slack messages, Git diffs. Anonymous statements from 2 former engineers. Metadata, footage of Melina copying documents from my drive at 2:14 a.m. And at the bottom of the post, what happens when the house of cards was built from someone else's blueprint? LW. It went viral within 90 minutes. By 11:02 a.m., Viridian was trending for the wrong reasons. By 12:16 p.m., Bloomberg's tech desk picked it up. By 1:03 p.m., Viridian's public Discord server went into meltdown. Their community manager posted a nervous message. We are reviewing these allegations with our legal team. Too late. The damage was done. I waited until 3:42 p.m. to pull the final trigger. I made the last buy, 100,000 shares, Viridian stock at a 40% dip, and I bought it under Miranode Holdings. That's right, I used the money they made while stealing from me to buy their company back, piece by piece. That night, Melina went live on Bloomberg Tech Talk, trying to spin the story. We've always respected IP rights. These claims are baseless. But halfway through the interview, the anchor cut in. Melina, this clip has surfaced from a confidential source. Can you confirm if this is you? Accessing private files from Whitmore Holdings after hours while your husband was overseas. The screen flashed to grainy footage. Melina froze. The anchor asked again. Silence. Then barely audible. I didn't know that camera existed. But the room went dead. She blinked rapidly, trying to cry, but her body language betrayed her. She didn't look like a CEO anymore. She looked like a woman who just realized the executioner was standing behind her the whole time. And I was. Quiet. Cold. Patient. Buying her empire with her own lie. The elevator opened to a hallway of silence. No greetings, no backslaps, just employees staring at their phones, faces pale, jaws tight. The news had hit full force. SEC opens investigation into Viridian Core. Following IP fraud allegations, lead executives allegedly involved in stage sabotage and document forgery. In her glass-walled office, Melina sat stiffly behind a mahogany desk, clutching a coffee she hadn't sipped. Her phone was on speaker, Trevor's voice came through, furious. Why didn't you tell me there were other cameras? Why the hell would you practice your lines on Slack? You told me it was clean, Mel. You told me this was a soft win. She didn't answer. Not at first. Finally, she muttered, I didn't think he'd fight back. Across town, I was at the courthouse filing the final motion. Criminal complaint for IP theft. Civil suit for reputational damage. Affidavits from 3 ex-employees. Authenticated footage. My attorney looked over the folder and exhaled. She's toast. No, I said. She's fertilizer. Later that day, Viridian's board called an emergency vote. 5 members abstained. 4 voted yes. 2 abstained out of fear. Melina was officially suspended pending investigation. Trevor resigned for personal reasons and went dark on social media. Viridian's top 2 legal reps also pulled out, citing irreconcilable ethics issues. Sinclair Equity dumped the last of their shares on market by close. The stock dropped another 23%. And on Reddit, the top comment was, Bro really hit reverse on a billion-dollar empire. At Revenge in HD. The best part? I still hadn't said a word to the press. Not a single interview. Not a tweet. Not a whisper. Because the truth didn't need my voice. It had her confession, her fingerprints, her fall, broadcast in 1080p. And that was just the beginning of the reckoning. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, investors, former employees of Viridian, even a few influencers who probably didn't understand what intellectual property theft actually meant, but smelled blood and brand deals. Melina sat to my left, wearing all black like it was a funeral. It was, just not mine. Trevor wasn't present. He'd vanished weeks earlier. No press, no PR. Cowards always know when the storm is coming. The judge asked for opening remarks. My attorney declined. We'll let the evidence speak for itself, Your Honor. Melina's lawyer stood. Jonathan Hale, smug as ever, trying to paint her as misguided, emotionally manipulated, a grieving woman acting under pressure. There was no intention to deceive, he said, pacing. At worst, there was an overstep, a misunderstanding of process, a woman taken advantage of by the system, and her ex-husband. He gestured toward me, a man with a documented history of coercion and emotional absence. I didn't blink. Then it was our turn. We didn't bring a speech. We brought a flash drive. My lawyer walked up and handed it to the bailiff. This is a 5-minute compilation, he said. It contains internal communications, video surveillance, and Slack logs, showing the defendant actively orchestrating both the theft of intellectual property and the defamation of the plaintiff. The judge gave a slight nod. Proceed. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. First, footage from my office, Melina copying files in the middle of the night. No gloves this time. Her face fully visible. Timestamp matching the very day she claimed she was at therapy. Then, a screen recording of her Slack chat with Trevor. Let's drop the first story through tech radar. Frame it as abuse. They'll believe it faster. Next, a video clip of her practicing lines in front of her bathroom mirror, months before the fake hotel setup. You think that's too much? Or should I cry more? Like I gave him everything, and he ruined me. Yeah? The final moment? An email. Subject, let's kill Lucas quietly. Sent from her Viridian Core account. The room froze. No coughing, no shuffling, just dead silence. The kind that usually comes after an execution. Melina didn't move. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, and for the first time since the hotel ambush, she looked scared. Actually scared, because the lies weren't collapsing. They were being broadcast, in her voice, with her face, on court record. And when the lights came back on, no one looked at me like a villain anymore, not even the judge, especially not my son, who was sitting in the back row, wide-eyed. Because truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to be played. Melina didn't show up for the final hearing. She didn't have to. By then, the damage was irreversible. Federal prosecutors had taken over. The SEC, FTC, and NY State Attorney General's office had all opened cases. The charges stacked fast. Wire fraud, corporate espionage, evidence tampering, false testimony, securities manipulation, attempted defamation with malicious intent. A subpoena uncovered more. Trevor had offshore accounts registered in Belize, holding deposits from a shell entity Melina formed under a fake wellness startup. It wasn't just betrayal, it was organized crime. The media flipped. Just weeks earlier, I was a disgraced executive. Now, I was being called a tech martyr, strategic genius, even the real victim. But I didn't care about the headlines. I cared about closure. I cared about my name, my son's last name, and how it would no longer be whispered with pity. Melina's lawyer, Jonathan Hale, tried to pull out of the case citing client dishonesty. The court denied him. Then they opened a disciplinary file. By Friday, Hale's bar license was formally suspended for knowingly facilitating fabricated evidence. He left the courtroom sweating and red-faced, ignoring every camera shoved in his direction. And Trevor? He was arrested at a private airstrip trying to leave the country. $300,000 in cash, 2 hard drives, and a USB with my company's master license key. Game over. I never testified. Never had to. The evidence spoke louder than I ever could. Melina took the stand one last time. She cried. She asked for mercy. She said she'd lost everything. And the judge's only reply was, "That was your choice, Mrs. Whitmore. You mistook ambition for immunity." She was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Trevor got 10. And me? I walked out of the courthouse free, not just legally, emotionally, because revenge isn't about screaming louder. It's about making sure the people who lied about you have to explain themselves in silence. The birds were louder than usual that morning, or maybe I just noticed them more. I was barefoot on the deck, coffee in hand, watching the mist crawl across the lake like it had secrets. Behind me, inside the cabin, the house was quiet. No startup chaos, no court filings, no press, just peace. Finally. The mailbox was at the edge of the gravel road, a half-mile walk down the drive. I made it once a week, just to feel the crunch under my boots. Therapy, in a strange way. That day, there was only one thing waiting for me. A pale envelope, no return address, no stamp. Just my name. Lucas. The handwriting was hers. I walked it back to the cabin slowly, placed it on the table, stared at it, didn't move. I knew what it was. A plea, an explanation, maybe even an apology. But I didn't need it. I had closure the moment she was sentenced. When my son looked at me and said, "I'm glad they finally saw who you are. Not what I was, not what they called me. Who I was. I lit the fireplace and tossed the letter in. Didn't open it. Didn't hesitate. Because forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting go of the part of you that waited for them to change. Melina told the world I hurt her, but I never laid a hand on her, never shouted, never lied. All I did was give her the truth. And the truth doesn't bruise, it erases.